My name is Derek Coons. I'm a luthier and also the co-founder of Violin Shop Tampa. A luthier is one who builds and or works on musical instruments, particularly violins, violas, cellos, guitars, basses. Physically, we take raw materials, which looks like fancy firewood, and we craft a violin out of it, where it involves bending sides, carving tops and backs, varnishing, and setting it up to make it a playable instrument. All violins, violas, cellos, basses are made with a solid carved spruce top that looks a lot like this when it's harvested and dried. You know, spruce has this lovely quality of amplifying sound, and it rings like a bell when it's cut right and split right. This is the violin neck block. This is what the necks of the violins are carved from. This is probably the most intriguing thing to an amateur maker, is how do you actually carve the scroll out of a chunk of wood that looks like that. After you square the block up, then you just take and cut the outline of the scroll out, which still leaves the question is, how do I start to carve this beautiful spiral? And it's really all done with a series of straight lines, and it's reminiscent of something you would find in nature if you were walking on the beach, or find a seashell. That's kind of where the design is inspired from, I do believe. Our workshop consists of 5 or 6 guys that are all very talented luthiers. Others have been to school in different countries, and they either have a gift at woodworking or they're very talented players. The violin in its present form appeared in Italy in the early to mid 1500s. One town in particular was sort of the birthplace of the violin, is Cremona, Italy, and it's still a hub today for violin making. As the violin evolved, the next 50 or 100 years, a couple of other towns popped up where there were makers, until Antonio Stradivari came along, and he became the world's most prolific and sought after of the violin makers, even to this day. Most of our days in the workshop are spent repairing or setting up new and used instruments, performing repairs for customers, doing bow rehairs. All the work on the violin, we basically use the same tools they used 300 years ago. Maybe half of 1% of the entire population plays the violin. But when you have a place like Tampa Bay that has roughly 3 million people, in the entire bay combined, that was enough for me to think that a violin shop here would work. So what we mostly do is service a lot of schools, elementary, middle schools, high schools. Our focus is really on giving the kids the best possible start for a decent amount of money, not ridiculous amounts and not super cheap, but just offer a fair product at a reasonable profit and help support local community stuff like the youth orchestras locally, Tampa Metropolitan Youth Orchestra, Sarasota Youth Orchestra, because those are tomorrow's professionals. To me, the art of playing the violin is just as important, if not more so, than the making. So whereas I look at a beautiful violin that was crafted maybe 300 years ago, to hear somebody that has passion behind their playing, it sort of brings it full circle and makes it all worthwhile. So it's no longer just a piece of furniture or a piece of art. You've had one man that spent his entire life perfecting the art of constructing a violin, but it takes the other person that spent their entire life perfecting the art of playing the violin, and it's a symbiotic relationship. It takes both of us to make it work.